Ladies and gentlemen, the show we've all been waiting for. Paranormal Buzz Radio is proud to present REP Paranormal and Friends with your hosts, Kim Purvis and Allison Robinson. Live every Thursday night on Spreaker, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. Be sure to check out their Facebook page, REP Paranormal Busters.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, welcome to another night of REP Paranormal and Friends. We have special guests tonight. We have Dawn and Lainey from Spectrewaves. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and for people that are listening that may not know who you are, if you just want to give a little bit about yourselves to start off with.
Sure. Is that we're Spectrewaves Paranormal. We're out of Chicago. Actually the suburbs of Chicago, and we've been investigating since 2013. Is that our lineage kind of goes back for myself? It goes all the way back to the 80s.
Oh wow!
And so I've always had an interest in the paranormal, and actually a precursor to the Paracons that everybody's used to. They used to have in Chicago, they had a ghost expo. And so back in the 80s, I think they did 2 or 3 ghost expos back in the 80s. And I used to sell something called the Map of Souls. And so the Map of Souls was a hand-drawn map that basically had legends, local legends of ghostly hauntings in and around the Chicagoland area.
Oh, wow.
So that was my foray into doing this. And then I met the love of my life, Lainey, in 2006, and she had told me about some ghost stories that she had, and when she was growing up, and so she always believed in the paranormal as well, and so our interest kind of peaked when we. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's
our
okay.
interest kind of peaked when we ended up going to. Watching some of the paranormal shows like Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, that kind of thing, and while we watched it, I had seen a blog site that talked about that everything that they did was fake. And so one day Lainey and I had a conversation about it, and I said, I go, I'm really interested, is that I'd really like to get the equipment, at least some of the equipment anyways, like a Mel meter or an EMF detector, and go on some real investigations. And I said, "Are you with me?" And she's like, "Sure." So we went ahead and we were like, okay, we'll go on a couple of investigations, which we did, and we actually had a spirit box with us. And ironically, what happened was on the first investigation, we asked a few questions. We did it just like the show, but we weren't there to fake any evidence. We just wanted to see if we could get evidence.
Right.
Or if it really was indeed everything that we were watching was just a put on. And shockingly, we actually got evidence. So, we had a spirit voice, an intelligent response on the spirit box that we asked for a name, and the gentleman gave a name and said Thomas. And we came to find out that there was a Thomas. He was a police officer who had died out in front of that building.
Oh,
and
wow.
He was a known spirit that that remained in that building to watch over people. At least that's what they had said. And so then we had a little bit of tragedy happen in after we started investigating. We went on a few investigations. Lainey got extremely sick and ill. So I'll pass it over to Lainey about what happened.
Oh, yes, yeah. I was on my a deathbed, actually. I was diagnosed with a really rare form of leukemia.
Oh, my gosh.
It was called AML, APL, M3 subtype. I was in Loyola, and what they told me was to start planning my last wishes. So I had to start planning my funeral. It was within maybe a couple days, if not a couple, as time went out, it was a couple of hours left. And they're like, you're not going to survive. I was bleeding out as fast as they were putting blood in me.
Wow. Right
away, it was, you're like, okay, I'm not going to die. I know I'm going to beat this. So my mindset was always positive, of course. They did give the treatment of arsenic. They tried. I was lucky that it did take. I was in ICU for about 4 months. And then about a year with chemotherapy. But saying that, what happened was being so close to that death plane, I became more sensitive to the paranormal.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's a great gift to have. Being this close now, we'll go on investigations, and I actually know what spot of the place to go to. All of a sudden, I'll feel how the person died or what kind of tragedy happened in this location. For instance, recently we were at a place and I said, did someone hang themselves on stage? And the guy looked at me and he's like, yeah, they did. No one knows about that. And he just couldn't believe I knew that. There's been several investigations we've gone to, and they're like, there's no activity up there. Why would you go up there? I'm like, let's just go up there. I feel it. Let's go. And sure enough, it's like the most active place in the whole place.
And so we investigate a little bit differently than a lot of people might see on shows or experience themselves. Is that what we do is when we go to a location, whether it's historic or whether it's private, we just ask for general information. We don't ask for specifics, and we try not to research the location outside of obviously getting the address. We don't try to research the location about what other people have found. And one thing that helps us, I think, is that when we go in there kind of cold, we're not influenced by something that we're looking for. And I've seen it on a lot of other investigations where people are told, there's a boy. Everybody talks about this little boy, and the little boy is over here, and he generally is in the hallway or he's in a bedroom or what have you. Is that so then you're more influenced. You're not. It doesn't make you more sensitive. I just think it influences you when you're on the investigation to think that certain things that you might get might be related to that little boy. Now, if you go in cold and you actually start to investigate and you start to come across phenomenon, is that you're not really influenced. You don't know if it makes a difference or not. So a lot of the times halfway through the investigation, usually there's somebody who's taking care of the location or who's on site. And so we'll go to them. We'll take a slight break halfway through, and we'll go to them and we'll tell them, listen, we were in this area. This is what we picked up. And I will tell you this, ironically, and it proves it to us every time. Ironically, they say, hey, there was such and such of an event that happened in that area. I'm surprised that you picked that up. And so before Lainey's sickness, we would just randomly go. I would just pick things and be like, hey, why don't we go over here? Or why don't we go down the hallway? Or why don't we go someplace else? And maybe we get something, maybe we wouldn't. And I will tell you this, is that shockingly, after her sickness and after we started to come back and do this, is that always she'll be like, I really want to go to the third floor, or I really want to go down in the basement. And every time we do it, there's something there. We catch something. And so So of course I just listen to Lainey now. When we go on the investigations, I don't say, hey, go somewhere. Hey, go, let's go over here. I tag along now. I'm like the tag along guy,
It's like the paranormal, the energy just attracts me, and I don't know how to explain it. And I'm trying now after each investigation to figure out what it is that attracts me. It's some higher energy that just like calls to you, and I can't explain it.
And Lainey had mentioned about the thing about the hanging guy, and just to be more specific about that investigation, we were at Fowler Theater, and there was a gentleman who was part of the board. It's Fowler, Indiana, and so he takes care of the theater, so he usually oversees any private investigations that go on at the theater. So we did the same thing. His name is Dwight. And we did the same thing with Dwight that we did with every other investigation that we've done. We kind of told him, listen, we don't really want to know anything, and then we'll touch base with you midway through. So when we were catching things behind the screen, which was essentially the old stage. When Lainey had come back up and talked to Dwight, that's when she said, listen, I just have to ask you something. Did somebody hang themselves back there? And that's why he was absolutely shocked about it. And he was like, yes. He goes, we can't, it's a small town, and they didn't really report tragedies because they didn't want to put a bad face on the town. But the story goes that, in the 30s, when it was used as a vaudevillian type of theater, he said somebody, one of the stagehands hung themselves off of the catwalk, which would be right behind the screen where the screen is now, which is where she picked it up at. And I was even shocked. Up until that time, I was a little bit suspect. Lainey always kept saying, well, I feel this, I feel that. But that really hit it home for me after that investigation. And from that point on, I listen to everything she says. Oh, wow. Is that I'm not skeptical at all when it comes to that, Yeah, right.
I have things like that happen too, but I haven't really come full blown with it yet, so we'll see how that turns out. So, like, when you have those, do you have, like, I mean, I know you can sense things, but do you have, like, visions of, like, what actually happened to the person?
Not really visions. I can't explain it. It's just like something that just clicks, and it just is like, oh, okay, that person hung himself, or there was a horrible tragedy, a husband and wife, they fought, things got out of hand. It's not like you see it first, you instantaneously will get it. And of course I love being right, but it is really scary. Going back to before I had leukemia, I actually dreamt of me having leukemia and being on the table and doing the spinal taps, and because I was sick for quite a while, but I didn't know that. So, after beating leukemia and thinking back now about dreaming about me dying from leukemia, really is kind of like, wow, how long did I have this for? Wow. And now I'm trying to embrace it as much as I can. It's like death always is trying to follow me. When I was first born, I came out with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck twice. Oh my goodness. And they had to revive me. So I came out not crying, unfortunately. Yes, and the doctor did revive me. So guess I have more lives than a cat, but
I guess.
But going through all this, that's why I'm trying so hard to figure out where does our energy go once we do pass away.
Right.
And that's really the biggest motivation for us is that so, and that takes me to, I know one of the things that we had corresponded about and that we had sent you that I think is really, really unique to our group. And I think that maybe the listeners would find it pretty unique, actually, is that for the most cases, when people investigate places, commonality places whether it's a prison or a old hospital or an asylum or a mansion, generally you'll get certain evidence, where it may not be a corroborating evidence. Like you'll get voices, You might get, interaction on the REM pods.
Mm-hmm.
You may see a shadow figure. And then the next group that comes in there may not see a shadow figure, right? It's random. It's very random.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the interesting thing. In 2018, August of 2018, we went to McPike Mansion, which happens to be in Alton, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right on the border right before St. Louis. And so we went down there to investigate. And the lady who owns it, Sharon, met us and talked to us out in the driveway before we went in and started to investigate. And one of the things that she had told us, she said, listen, I just wanted to let you know, Ghost Adventures was here like 3 weeks before you guys came and did an investigation. And she wasn't too happy with how they handled her mansion because she really takes pride in the fact that she protects the spirits that she says are there, which is, Mr. McPike, the first original owner of the property. Mm-hmm. And so she thought that they were being rude to and screaming at 3 o'clock in the morning, saying that there's demons there. And she was like, there's no demons here. So she was upset. She was still upset by the fact of how they treated her property and her spirits.
Oh, wow.
So we went there and started the investigation. Mm-hmm. And so through the course of the night, we had picked up some EVPs and, we use, Lainey loves using the XCam, which is that 360 Connect.
Oh, yep.
Device. Yeah. So, so Lainey absolutely loves it. And, so we were doing a spirit box session in the foyer by the front door. Now, I'll just set this up, is that the front doors are original to the building. They have leaded glass windows, so you can't really see any particular thing outside of the windows, outside of maybe some ambient light. You would never see it. Even if a person was standing there, you wouldn't even see an outline. They're that leaded and opaque. Is that and so I sent it to Lainey to tell you what she saw.
So we had the spirit box going, and all of a sudden I looked over at the door, and I see a red light and a white light. It was like a streak, and it was very, very bright. And I turned it on, and I said, "Oh my God, our equipment's out there. Is someone out there? What's going on?" And I said, "We got to go out there." I was pretty shooken up because it was first, what was it, like 1 in the morning?
Oh yeah, it was like 1 in the morning.
Really late.
And this building sits on a residential street, and it's not like it's fenced off or it's isolated. So it would be very easy for somebody to pull up in a driveway or pull out, be out on the street, run up to where we had some of the equipment sitting on the porch and easily just go and grab it and take it, So we knew that, that we had stuff out there. So right away, we stopped the spirit box session. We still had a static cam running that was recording us doing the spirit box session, and Lainey ran outside, and I followed her. So we opened up the door.
Within seconds, seeing
right.
The red light and the white light.
So we go right out the door, and when we're out there, we're looking. Nothing's disturbed, and the porch is big enough that you could see if somebody had tried to run off. It was literally a second and a half, and you could see if somebody tried to run off into the distance. And then what we hear, clear as day, is that we hear horses. Now, this is a residential area. There's no farms there with horses. So we hear, and I'll do my famous imitation of this, but it's like,
yeah.
And if you've ever heard horse hooves on stone or cobblestone, it makes a really distinct sound.
Right.
So we hear the horses, and we reference that. Now, fortunately, the camera is still running inside of the foyer, so it picks up the horse sounds. And you hear Lainey and I on the video, and I'll just do a shout out to our YouTube channel at this point. So if anybody who's listening wants to experience what happened at McPike, feel free, go to our YouTube channel, which is Spectrewaves, and you can check out this particular video of horse sounds at McPike. So consequently, we hear the sounds outside, we reference it, And I say emphatically, I go, Lainey, do you hear that? And she goes, yeah, it's horses. And I said, yeah, it's like horses on cobblestone. It's like a horse and carriage. It's like horses on cobblestone. So we were anxious to see. So fast forward from that experience, we were anxious to see what Ghost Adventures had, what they had captured at McPike.
Yes.
So they aired the episode in January of 2019. So we diligently sat here and watched the episode. And the first part of the episode, it was nothing similar to what we caught. Then at about midway through the episode, Zach is standing in the front yard, and I know where he was standing, obviously because we had just been there 6 months ago, and or 6 months prior. Zach's standing there, and he says, do you guys hear that? It's horses. It's horses on cobblestone.
Yeah.
Is that, and so I can honestly state that of all the evidence that we ever captured in all the places that we've ever gone, I have never captured anything that another group had experienced that was the same phenomenon.
Right.
I've never had that happen. And I think that's so unique, and that's really why I wanted to bring it up and point it out to your listeners. Is that so? We did a little, I did a little mock-up of a video of Zach saying it, and then our horse sounds, so that you can definitely see. But we have no interaction with Ghost Adventures whatsoever, and I can tell you just based on how the disappointment that Sharon had during it is, with her experience with them, I'm certain that even if they saw our video, I'm certain they wouldn't have run back there. And she wouldn't have let them come back. Just
I don't think a lot of people would.
Yeah. So, and so I know that it was that whatever they experienced, right, was the same thing that we caught on the audio portion of our camera. Right. And I think, is that so fast forward to about another couple of months later, after we posted the video and after we saw, what they had captured, is that somebody from the neighborhood there wrote us and said, listen, I just wanted to tell you, I've lived on the block of McPike for 35 years. And in the summer, every night, we just take it for granted. We hear those horse sounds every night. And I wrote
weird.
back, I asked what time did they hear it, because we know it was about 1 o'clock in the morning when we caught it. And she's like, we don't really pay attention. She goes, I've been here so long that we hear it all the time, and it's just kind of a normal course of action. She said, anybody who's lived on this block for any amount of time hears these horses. And so we always make jokes about it, but basically, it's there, and we've never heard anybody capture that didn't, that wasn't part of this block or this community. And she said, so I just wanted to write you to validate the fact that we have experienced it too, and we know it's there. So, I mean, really, as an investigator, right, I mean, I think that really hits home if there's anybody out there who questions phenomenon, right, repeatable phenomenon, which would be, the horse sounds would be a residual haunting, is that anybody who questions that, really go watch the video, because it's really, really amazing, and it's very rare that it ever happens. Have you ever had that happen?
I don't think so. No, we haven't. We haven't had that happen yet. Mm-mm.
Is that so? So, and that's what I think was a really, really, one of the key unique points of when we investigate. Is that so. We just recently did, another interesting one that we did was we did Stimson Hospital, which is in Michigan. It's in Eaton Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
And so it's a big brick old building. It was used for a hospital up until the 70s, and it was used as a local hospital. It's a huge building, not 20,000 square feet or anything, but if you could picture like a double-sized mansion, from the turn of the century, that's about the size of what this building is. And because it's all brick, we were doing a spirit box session in what was the doctor's office, Dr. Stimson's office. And as we were doing that session, we were asking questions, and a girl was coming across the spirit box. What did it say?
It said Simpson.
Yes, that
Claire as day. And you asked, you said, is your name Simpson? Stimson. You said, and it said yes.
Yeah. I mean, and it said Stimson, and I was like, wow. Is that that doesn't happen very often at all to us? Mm-hmm. Is that you'll get, you'll get responses, sometimes intelligent responses, sometimes nonsensical responses, where I don't think they even know that you're there, and I think you're just intruding on whatever they happen to be saying at the time. But the ironic thing about this is, as this happened, just a little bit after it happened, what happened then? Was that?
Well, shortly after that, we had the vortex. It started going off, and you were asking it to light up, and it was lighting up as it was listening to you. We were also in the background. Our POVs was picking up a child talking and answering questions. It was very hard to slow down that audio, though. But,
right.
We did get that. Also, the spirit box, before it said Stimson, it said the dead. Let's see, what else? This was, you want to tell about
that?
Yeah.
So as we're experiencing all these things in this one area of Stimson Hospital, is that all of a sudden there's this giant boom to the point where it actually shook our POV cameras.
Oh, wow.
And it sounded like, and it felt like that, like somebody had backed a truck up into the building. That's how much it shook. And so we were like, wow, that's incredible. That's nuts, man. So when we talked to the owner of the Stimson Hospital, he said to us, and we asked him, we said, listen, did something happen where, there was a truck out front, because it's right off of off of a street. And I said, was there a truck or something? And he goes, why? What happened? And I said, we had this giant boom that we can't explain while we were investigating. I mean, it shook the whole room. And he goes, I'm shocked by that. And I said, why is that? He said, first off, I've never experienced that. But he said, secondly, the walls here are 18 inches thick of concrete. And he said, and so are the floors. He said, you would have had to get a wrecking ball to shake that house. He said, that house is not framed. There's no frame in it whatsoever. And he said, it's all pure concrete, brick. And he said, very thick walls. So I was absolutely blown away by that it could even shake. So when we reviewed the evidence, what happened with the evidence when we reviewed it?
After reviewing it, we had 2 whoosh sounds right before it happened. It was kind of like a just like that. Then all of a sudden you got that bang where my Connect shook. It shook me. Oh, and we didn't see this, but on the video you can see mist all of a sudden by the stairway, just rushing up the stairway. And then once again we hear 3 more times.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And one of those whoosh sounds actually corresponded to, when we reviewed the evidence, when we reviewed the video, one of the whoosh sounds totally corresponded to the ball of light that went out the door. And I mean, it went super fast. It took me, I had to slow down the video to actually see it initially. Mm-hmm. And Lainey's always good about that. I think she's got better eyes than I do.
Could she see it without the video camera? Like, did she physically see it, or just through the video camera?
Just to the video camera, yeah. We were so shocked that something actually shook us both, and I think I just started swearing. I was in shock. Right. So I
which is always hard when you're trying to edit video, right?
And you're live.
and you're swearing. It's always tough to do. But and we've had a bunch of, smaller experiences. But one recently that comes to mind, we were doing a private investigation in a home in Kankakee, Illinois. And as we were doing this investigation, we were doing a spirit box session. We had a new spirit box that we hadn't used before. I don't know if you're familiar with, what is it, Glowers?
Yeah.
No.
Jason Glowers?
Yeah, Jason Clowers.
Clowers.
Yeah,
Clowers.
ITC.
Is that, so he, he does these handmade spirit boxes. They don't have reverb in it or anything, but what they do a little bit differently than normal spirit boxes is they'll sweep AM and FM combined, one right after the other. So AM band, FM band, AM band, FM band. So we were using it, and we were asking questions in this house in Kankakee. And this is the first time that I've heard of this happening before to other investigators. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to get your take on it, because I've heard this before, is that it said my name, mm-hmm. which absolutely, when it said my name, Lainey was like, it said your name.
your first and last
my
name.
First and last name.
Oh, wow.
And then on review, when I went back to review it, not only did it say my first and last name, but then it said right afterwards, and we couldn't make it out. We could make out the name at the time, but mm-hmm. we couldn't make out what the voice said right after. And what it said was, "We need you, Don."
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay, that's not good. That's definitely not good.
Yeah.
So apparently maybe we're getting known in the paranormal realm.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
So have you ever had that happen to you guys at all?
I've had my name said, actually, I've had it said quite a few times in different locations on different types, like, the SB7, or if we've tried Necrophonics or other apps mm-hmm. or other SB11s. But Kim here actually had her nickname come up, Half Pint.
Oh, wow.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Which was pretty cool. We're like, well, we call her Half Pint, and then we're like, what's Kim's nickname? And they're like, Half Pint. So, yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. It's the only time we've gotten it was like one time, and I think that was at Malvern Manor. So, but yeah, they did say it, so it was pretty cool. All right, let's see here. Oh, did we lose you?
We did.
Oh,
nope, you're back.
There we go. Okay.
We're back again.
I was like, hello? I was like, Bueller. And then I heard a beep, and I was like, oh, you're back. All right.
So
yeah, I know there was some other things, though. You guys have been to the Warsaw jail. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that and experiences that you've had there?
Sure. Is that we were at Warsaw, and we actually got a lot of Connect activity at Warsaw. And one of the things that we experienced there that seemingly has followed us since that time. I don't know what the deal is and why it does it. Okay, but we were in one of the cells. They only have a few of the cells that are still. They have one initially that they didn't take really anything out of. So it still has the beds. It still has the way the cell was set up, and so we were in there, and Lainey was doing a Connect activity on it. Mm-hmm. And so I was standing by the top bunk, and Lainey said, "Wait a second, he's sticking his rear end out."
Oh yeah, I can see that.
He's sticking his rear end out in your face. And I go, get out of here. I go, get your. I said, and she goes, I don't know. She goes, he just wants to keep sticking his rear end in your face.
He put his hands on the wall.
Then he put his hands on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah. He was.
I'm like, wow, this is a whole prison thing.
And he backed up into you.
Yeah, and he kept backing up into me.
Drop the soap, right?
Yeah, right. And the ladies, have you ever been there? Have you ever been to Warsaw?
No, we haven't. We haven't been out of the state yet. We would love to. I mean, we're going to Cambry House in Illinois this year, but
you are. So are we.
Else yet. So hopefully we will at some point.
When are you guys going to Cambry?
Let's see here.
August.
In August.
Is that actually we're going in May?
We're going in May. Yes.
Yeah, we're going the end of. Is that yeah? So, and then she said that her daughter's expecting, so she's like, I may not be there, meaning her.
Oh yeah, actually, Rebecca right now was in chat.
She is right there.
Yeah, she's in chat. My chat's kind of lagging, so I have to keep backing out, She's right there. She's like, woohoo. She said, woohoo.
See?
She's great. I love Rebecca. She's awesome.
So, is that yeah? But the ladies who run Warsaw, they were really prolific in doing a lot of investigations a few years ago, and based on what they said, they slowed down. Right? They said, well, we don't really do it much anymore, and the board of trustees lets us run investigations here at the Warsaw Jail. But the nice thing about the Warsaw Jail, and I don't know if have you ever been to any jails in Indiana that
like I said, we haven't been
out. Oh no, you haven't been out, right? Yeah.
The only one we've been to is Squirrel Cage in Council Bluffs. That's the only one we've been to so far.
Well, in Indiana, and I don't know how it is for the rest of the country, as far as how older jails were, or older regional jails were, but in Indiana they had a law that was in place up until the 70s that the elected county sheriff had to live in the jail. In the front part of the jail was generally houses. Yeah. So is that now we've been to Crown Point, and Crown Point is like 3 floors. Dillinger, their claim to fame is Dillinger was kept there and broke out of there.
Oh wow! Okay.
During the 20s, but they're still in the process, and they have been. Sandy's been trying to restore Crown Point for since we've known her, going back like 3 years. Is that and we haven't been back in a couple of years, so one of these days we'll make another trip back and surprise Sandy. But is that so they're still in the mix. They were still in the mix of redoing like the upstairs and stuff. But what I will say about Warsaw Jail is the upstairs is absolutely pristine. It's like you step back into just a little bit later than the turn of the century. I mean, it's and it's fun to investigate places like that where where it looks the way that it did. Is that and so but the ladies were, when we actually brought the video out and showed them the inmate going backwards, and she said, I can tell you, we've been here a long time and we've never seen that before ever.
I know, I watched that and I was just like, oh my gosh, what is it doing? Why is it backing up to him? And I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, right? Right? And then I think, I'm trying to remember, we were at another place.
Yes, and that happened to you.
That happened to me again.
Yes.
Man.
is that they love.
They're like it Dawn.
I know.
The pretty boy.
I know. I don't know what, I don't know what the deal is with that, but, is that, but, and we've had a lot of like cool things that have happened. I know a lot of people kind of dispel the fact of oh, well, it's the Kinect and it's picking up things. We already know,
right,
what it picks up, right? I mean, it picks up lamps. It can, map a mirror, if you're directly in front of it. It'll pick up mops and make them people, or brooms that are up against the wall. Anything that's a stick, it generally wants to pick up and map. So a lot of the stuff that we've captured with the Kinect that I post, right? Because there's other stuff that I don't post that really it's really a 50-50 shot if it really was picking something up, or if it was just picking up something that it thought it was. One of the missed figure mapping. So we were at. God, I lost my train of thought now. Oh no. That's not good.
You were talking about the
No, I keep thinking about the guy backing up into me. No. I don't know why. So
I was going to mention that photo that we took at Warsaw. Remember, we were taking photos up in the library?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, mention it.
Library.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What was that library used for?
It was the records. It was the records.
Yeah, but they were
back,
super
right.
old. And Don was taking a couple photos of me, and all of a sudden we're reviewing these photos later, and it's me double exposed. It's like my head is my head, and then there's another head above me. Now, what's really weird about that is the head above me, half its face is like shot off. Going back to what we were told, what happened in that area was it was a husband and wife, and the wife got her half her face shot off. And so looking at this photo, you can see my normal expression, and then on top of me is the face that half the face is shot off like a shotgun. And what's weird is the top that they're wearing is like a white halter collared top. Now, I had on a tan vest that didn't have a collar like that at all. I had a shirt on. That was actually a halter, so you can see the woman's, upper shoulders.
Right. Is that, and so what was weird about that was that we just used, an Android Samsung phone, a Galaxy phone. And we've never, it's very difficult to make that phone double expose. I mean, and so when she was going through the pictures, I mean, you'll get pictures that are blurry, you'll get pictures sometimes that, that are streaky, where maybe you move the camera when you shot it. But to get a double exposure like that is like unheard of. And I don't even know where that picture came from. It was weird because of all the other pictures, there were some that were out of focus and whatnot, but nothing that was a double exposure. And we've never had that happen again.
No, and the facial expression of the person on top of me that looks identical to me, it looked like a zombie. I mean, the one eye was
did. Oh yeah, right. That right.
It looked just like me, which was really weird, with half its face shot off. And you can even see like a gunshot wound over the eye.
Right.
With blood just gushing out.
I mean, it was super unreal, And that brings me to the one thing that I wanted to talk about with McPike. I just wanted to touch back on this. There's another video, if anybody wants to watch it. It's a phenomenon that we've never had happen again. Mm-hmm. We were in the process of setting up at McPike. We weren't even ready to go yet, right? So I turned the video camera on. Lainey was getting the REM pod configured and stuff, and the REM pods started to go off. Well, sometimes those REM pods, if the batteries are low or they get drained, sometimes you'll get those errant things where it just starts going off.
Right.
And one thing I'll tell everybody that's on the, that's listening tonight is that we don't use any walkie-talkies. And the reason behind that, well, first off, there's only two of us. But when you put walkie-talkies around an area where the REM pods are, you can set the REM pods off. You can actually get them to go off by just keying the walkie-talkie. So we put our phones on airplane mode. We don't use walkie-talkies. And so as we were on the porch and Lainey was setting up, REM pods going off, Lainey's like, well, maybe the battery's low. We'll just get another battery. So I ran to the car. I came back with the battery. I gave her the battery. Now, we have an Ovilus that we had on the porch that it was on, but we hadn't really started anything with it. And the Ovilus went off. What did the Ovilus say on the porch?
It said gateway and phone.
And then, ironically, Lainey says, look at the phone. Now, her phone, you can see it on video. Her phone is sitting on the chair, on the wicker chair, just sitting face down on the wicker chair.
Oh, wow.
It's taking pictures by itself. Mm-hmm. So, okay, you could say, well, maybe you had a timer on, maybe you had this. But we all know any phones that have been manufactured in the past 10 years, right? If you want to do video on a phone, you have to select the video. Mm-hmm. You can't just, it just doesn't start videotaping by itself. And what happened? It took a series of 3 pictures, it switched, and it went into a video mode and started videotaping. Then it stopped. Then it went back to the last another picture. And then it never happened again.
And this was a different phone from the phone that we took a picture with at the Warsaw jail.
Right. This was a 9, right?
This was an S9 Plus.
Right. And so just really weird is that, and we went back and looked at the photos, and there was nothing on the photos. We were really hoping that maybe it was, like spirit photos, right? Mm-hmm. But we've never seen this thing ever take pictures by itself, let alone go into video and then go back into pictures. So I thought that was, that's another one of the unique things.
Well, the obelisk also.
Saying
went
phone.
out. No,
Oh,
remember,
yeah, right.
eventually it just went out after this happened.
Right.
It wouldn't work for us anymore.
Yeah.
The whole time we were there.
Totally went out. Never happened before. Is that we couldn't get that, I couldn't get that thing on to save my soul. And then, ironically, right, because we stayed down there, we got back in the car and we drove back to the hotel. And the next morning, it really bothered me that this obelisk wasn't working. So I plug it in. It's got full battery, and it starts working.
Yeah.
It turns back on and starts working. That would not work the whole night, but
great.
It turned on and started working. So going back to the Connect stuff that we catch a lot of different things is that we've had interactions. So I seem to be the test dummy because Lainey always loves the Connect. So I'm always on the opposing side of the Connect, right? So we were at the Opera House in Geyer Opera House. That's what it was in Indiana.
Yes.
And so there was a story that we had come to find out that there was a little boy. They had it's still an opera house. It's still a functional opera house. And they had the Boy Scouts there. And they were doing gun safety for the Boy Scouts. This was back in like 73, 74. So they were doing gun safety, and one of the guys that was demonstrating the rifle safety, the rifle was loaded, and it went off, and it shot a poor boy that was in the front of the theater. Mm-hmm. And so they took him downstairs right away to, at that point, it was a storefront. They had taken him downstairs, and they tried to triage him and stuff, and subsequently he passed away. So we came to find that out afterwards. So when we were again setting up, Lainey had the Connect aimed at me, and she said, "Look, there's something on the chair. There's like a little boy on the chair, or a little figure on the chair." Mm-hmm. So I went over there, and the figure starts climbing up my arm. So I hugged it, and it hugged me back.
Oh wow!
Is that so?
And we caught that on our video.
On our video,
we
yep.
I
haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah. So if you check out the Geyer Opera House, you'll see it's all we're not even in infrared. I mean, it's all the lights are still on, and again we were just in the process of setting up, and then lo and behold, this little guy came up and appeared, and so I figured I'd hug him.
Right.
Is that to say I was sorry, and he hugged me back,
That's great.
and so I don't even know how is that it's, we really have a lot of success with a lot of Connect things, and we always have a lot of success with spirit boxes. You don't see us doing a lot of EVPs because I never really get anything. I mean,
except for at Fowler Theater.
Well, that was on a static cam, though.
At Fowler, okay, it was.
Yeah. Is that we catch stuff, errant voices on camera? How's it been for you guys with EVPs and stuff?
We actually get quite a few EVPs. We actually just posted one on our Twitter last night. We're at a cemetery by Edinburgh Manor, and one of our gals is doing like the necrophonics. She has headphones in. And there's a couple of us, we are on the other side of the cemetery, and she's asking questions and just kind of listening to the necrophonics. But you can literally hear, it's not through the app, but you can hear somebody say, "Help." Right through.
Really?
Yeah. And then one of our first ones, very first place we investigated was Bliska Axe Murder House. And
wow.
Yeah, we went with an old camcorder that takes cassette tapes, had night vision, and then we bought these really cheap recorders, and we went, and we're like, let's see what happens, we'll stay here, we'll see what happens. We got a lot of stuff, and Kim, actually, who's with me tonight, she's writing down all the questions, because we have a lot of questions for you in chat, so I'll be asking those for you shortly, but she was in the house actually by herself. The rest of us were in the barn, and she's in the little parlor area, and she's asking, Lena, are you here with me? Herman, are you here? And my daughter actually caught it, and it says Herman, like in a whisper. It's a little boy. You hear him clearly say Herman. It was crazy. Like,
that's great. And I don't know why, I think it's, maybe it's, from a patient's standpoint, I don't know. But I mean, a lot of times we'll have recorders, we'll leave them run, and I'll go back and review, and it's nothing. I never hear anything.
What about Bachelor's Grove?
Except for Bachelor's Grove.
That's over here down the street from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's supposedly the most haunted place in America.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like the most haunted cemetery in America.
Oh, wow.
And
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we don't live there. We live literally like half a mile away from it. So convenient, right? That wasn't set up. That wasn't set up that way. It just worked out that way. But so we were in Bachelor's Grove, and we've got. I've never posted it. Either.
I was just looking.
No,
yeah,
I've never ever posted it.
We should.
But we got the EVP, and
you asked them, did they want to communicate with us? And all of a sudden you hear no.
Actually, what I said, because sometimes I think in spite of myself I get too sarcastic, and so I said, does anybody want to come out and play?
Oh, that's what you said, yes.
Because I kept asking questions and weren't getting any responses, listening back. So I was getting frustrated, and I was like, does anybody want to come out and play? And then you hear, no. Okay. All right. So you don't want to come out and play. That's fine. Is that so? But generally, that's why you don't see a lot of EVPs from us, because we'll capture stuff on video. We'll capture stuff. We're really, big supporters of the Spirit Box. I know some people aren't. But we get a lot of interaction, a lot of intelligent responses on the Spirit Box. So that's kind of fun for us, is that, especially right when you're there and you're live.
Right.
We used like 3 different connects now, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Bill Chappell's Gotcha Ghost, and the other one from Europe.
Yeah, from the guy from England.
One.
Yeah.
Kim has the Gotcha.
Oh, you do?
One. Mm-hmm.
That's actually a good one.
Up to our computer for a while, just a regular Connect, but then somehow we got locked out of it. We don't know how, but all of a sudden it just decided to lock us out of it. So we just used the
that's horrible.
But
Is that the only thing that and you have to account for that on that Gotcha Ghost one, right? Because everything's reverse.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Is that?
Yep.
Yep. So and that's the difference between that and that XCam that Bill Chappell did. Is that the XCam, he was able to change I did some research on it just to see if I could fix it, and I couldn't. But when they rewrote some of the code using the Connect software, he changed the X and Y access. That's what changes it to not be reverse. Is that so? Somehow, I don't know how he did it, but he changed it so that in the software itself, it displays how you're seeing it, and not the opposite way. So that always frustrated the hell out of me. But we got used to it, though.
Right.
But,
so we're always sitting there and we're like, okay, so can you do this? Can you do that? Whoever's standing in front of it, so we can see kind of what maybe it might be mapping out. Just
right, yeah.
If we're catching something or not.
Didn't you try contacting?
Yeah, I did. I actually wrote him.
He doesn't even know how to.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know.
He's like, I don't know.
I asked him. I said, have you ever tried it? He goes, no, not really. I don't know. And I said, okay. I go, that's cool. Okay.
That's great.
But yeah, I always, and that's the thing, right? So you always hear directions from Lainey. I mean, we've gotten used to it now. But Lainey, it's always like, no, your other right. No.
Can you imagine that a lot of people don't know about that? They're like, what does this girl not know left from right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. They're watching and they're like, what?
That's me when I'm using it.
You're like, no, the other right. No, go that way.
Right, the other side.
Okay, so real quick here, just briefly tell us a little bit about your private investigation that you did with the little music box that you had going off.
Oh, with the Polter tune.
Yeah.
Lainey, you want to talk about that?
Oh, wow. Okay, so the Polter tune, we actually used that. Which one do you want to do? The private investigation.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
in DuPage County.
In DuPage County.
Yes.
Recently, it was a family, and there was a death in the family. The guy actually, he was older. He died in the bed. Just natural causes, of course. And we were called in, I think about like 2 weeks later, maybe. And that was the room that he passed away in. And we had the Pulcher tune set up. And we also had the Connect going at the same time. But to back this up a little bit, we first set up the Pulcher tune, and we weren't in the room at all. And we were out there talking with the family. And all of a sudden, we hear the Pulcher tune going off. And they had a little kid with them, and he's like, "You guys, it's going off, you guys." And we ignored him at first. We were like, okay, you know. But he's like, "No, seriously, it's going off by itself." So we all ran in there, and there's nothing in front of the Pulcher tune, and it's going off. So we all get excited, me and Don, and the family was there, and we set up, and sure enough, we would ask, can you go ahead and make the Pulcher tune go off again? Mm-hmm. And sure enough, it goes off. Now we have the Connect going, and we're trying to debunk, okay, what is making this Pulcher tune go off? Is there anything in the way? What's going on? Nothing was triggering it to go off. Now what was really cool is the same time the Pulcher tune was going off, we had a Connect figure sitting on the dresser where the Pulcher tune was going off. And you see the figure playing with the Pulcher tune.
Oh, wow.
And the thing about the Pulcher tune is that you may have seen its previous version. I think they used it on Ghost Adventures at one point. Is that it's the wood box that looks like a coffin?
Right. Yeah.
Is that then? Yeah. Is that so? This Pulcher tune is, and I don't want to say that we're cheap, but this Pulcher tune is the cheaper version.
No, but I like theirs.
Yeah, is the cheaper version of the wood one. Does the same thing, uses the same, ultrasonic. It doesn't use IR, it uses ultrasonic. And when you set it up, it actually measures the distance between an object up until I think it's about like 20 feet or 25 feet away from it. Oh. And so anything that breaks that pattern between what it senses in front of it up to 25 feet is that. And it's not like IR where you really have to break the beam, where you have a receiver and a transmitter. You actually just have this ultrasonic pulse that comes out. And that's what we really liked about it, right? And so, and it's still in the early stages of us trying to debunk, like, is it hitting something and getting some kind of reflection back, or is it really getting something? And so when you corroborate that with having the Connect, showing a figure standing by it and messing around with it, right?
Right.
That pretty much for us. I mean, that pretty much sells it home.
Well, we also had the Pulcher tune going off the same time the figure was flying around in the room, dunking underneath the door.
Underneath the door, out. Right.
And on command, we had the Pulcher tune go off too. So we're standing there, and you were asking, "Can you have that go off?
Yeah,
can you stop making it go off?"
And it's a really fun device. I wish it had creepier music though. That's the only.
Yeah, I know.
It sounds a little bit too happy for me. I don't know.
It does, kind of. Yeah. I mean, when it first came out, I was like, "Oh, that looks pretty cool." But I haven't gotten one yet. But I was kind of searching it today. And did you know they sell it at Walmart now online?
Do they really?
Yeah, Walmart popped up for it. I was like, what?
Did he say for paranormal?
It was like $350 or something like that.
Oh, yeah, well, for the wood one, yeah. This one's only, the Pulcher tune, the one that we have, is more cylindrical, and it, it was only $199. So,
wow.
So they, and you can get it, from eBay. That's where, the people
I think
who actually.
Ghost Hunter store, the St. Augustine.
St. Augustine. Yeah, that's who makes it. Those people from the St. Augustine thing.
Oh, okay.
They saw the video, actually. It was kind of funny. They saw the video after, because they had just brought it out, the Pulcher tune version of it, not the wood version. They really just released it like a couple months ago. And so they were like, hey, can we use your video on our site to promote the Pulcher tune thing?
Oh, geez, wow.
I was thinking to myself, well, what? Why don't we, can we get any residual from it? I don't know.
Well, that's the goal, though, between me and you, is just to promote
No,
what
right,
we
I
get
know.
and trying to debunk, the paranormal and get the evidence out there to educate the public on our findings.
Right, right. Is that, and we're not, we never tried to convince anybody. We just want to really, you know, hit the point home that
Right.
we don't fake any of this stuff. And not only for personal experiences of what we encounter, but, we want to give food for thought that, that whether it's dimensional or a portal or,
A parallel
there's a
universe.
whole host of theories, which I'm sure you guys are aware of, that, that people always try to figure this out, right? But it's it's part of the adventure to go look for it, but it's also part of the adventure to give people thought, and pause on it. I mean, tales of ghosts and spirits have been around, since humanity. So there's got to be something to it, right?
And there's got to be a reason why we're doing this together and why I have more lives than a cat. So
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. I do have some questions. I have quite a few, actually, from our chat. They're usually pretty good.
Oh, awesome.
So I try to get in as many questions from them as I can. Okay, so one of the first questions was, what is your favorite device of choice?
Ooh. Well, is that I'll answer is that my absolute favorite device really is the SB11 Spirit Box.
Uh-huh.
And I know what Lainey's answer is going to be, but go ahead.
Go ahead and say it. It's
No,
the
go ahead.
Connect. Yes.
It's the Connect. She loves that Connect.
And of course, the millimeter is my other favorite because I like to get corroborating evidence. So if I see something on the Connect, I like something else to happen. So either a spike on the millimeter or have the REM pod go off on the millimeter. I hate just getting one device going off because I just like to corroborate it.
Yes, that's absolutely 100%. Yep. Oh, let's see here. Okay, so we have another one here. How can you debunk if you do no research?
Well, is that we do it. We kind of, like I said, we do it after the fact, and just because we don't want the influence of what we're experiencing to really taint the initial part of the investigation. We do research, but we do it afterwards to see what other groups and what other experiences and what other known legends or stories, were about that property. Is that so? Like I said, we kind of do it in reverse, so we're not influenced during the investigation. And sometimes we'll find out halfway through. A lot of the times we do, because most of the time somebody's on site, that has allowed us to go investigate, their location. And so once we start encountering things, we'll go and share that with them, and they'll come back and say, hey, we never got that before, or nobody's ever said that before. We've never experienced anything in that area. And a couple of times I will say this, is that for a couple of investigations, there have been stories about, like the Fowler Theater, for example. There was a story about that people were hearing a little boy's voice. One group thought that they caught it on an iPhone, and it wasn't. It was a little bit garbled, and they weren't sure, but it sounded like a little boy's voice. I watched the video after we did the investigation. We had a static cam running by the projectionist booth, shooting the entire theater, and we had left. You actually see us on that camera walking out of the theater, and we went to the front of the theater to kind of regroup, get some air, and then we were going to go back in and start investigating. So you hear us leave the theater,
Right.
and there's nobody in the theater, and you hear as clear as day on our static cam, you hear, "Mom," and it's definitely a little boy's voice. And when we played that for Dwight at the Fowler, Dwight has closed-circuit cameras set up all through the theater. He went back on his closed-circuit footage, and he caught it, but his voice that he caught was really low and guttural, saying the same thing at the same amount at the same time. So it wasn't just a phenomenon that we caught on one camera, we caught it on both cameras. His closed circuit camera and our camera, and he was so pumped about it that he wrote us and he goes, people have talked about hearing this voice. We've kind of, another investigation kind of caught a little boy saying something, but we couldn't quite make it out. But he said, this is like totally clear. And it's things like that that we weren't looking for. We were never looking for that. We weren't told about it. We went in there blind, and I think it gives more credence actually to the evidence that we catch,
Right. We did have a question here. Where did that one go? Shay's wanting to know, are you both psychic?
Oh.
Nope, not me. Not me. Not at all. Not at all. I'm not, I wouldn't even consider, I don't even get inspiration when we go there half the time. I just get attacked by Connect figures. That's it.
Yeah.
And you're also starting to feel
like
stuff
to bend
lately.
over in front of you.
That's it. That's it. I'm a popular guy when it comes to the jails.
Or
I
give you
guess
hugs.
so.
Or gives me hugs, yeah. Or, is it? And we're actually going to Fowler, Indiana has a jail similar to Crown Point, similar to Warsaw, and we're doing that at the beginning of May. So I'm anxious to see who's going to attack me there.
Yeah, you'll have to keep me posted on that.
Oh, definitely. We'll hit you up. If we get the evidence with it, I'll hit you up with it, and I'll be like, hey, look at this. It continues.
Sounds good. Okay, next question here is, what do you fear the most of the paranormal?
Oh, is that one thing we try to stay away from is that, and I think it's a little bit out of fear, is that demonics. If we know, just relatively speaking, that there's we've heard a little history of a property that, not so much dark entities, that doesn't really bother me, but it's that whole demonic thing. Like, you get an attachment that comes home with you that's demonic. I mean, Lainey and I have a really good relationship, and we've been together for like 14 years.
Right.
But is that, and I really truly believe in my heart of hearts that if you get an attachment from one of these, areas, and you bring it home, or you don't sage when you leave the area, and and try to do a prayer, and we're not the most Christian people in the world. I would never say that, but that's the one thing that I think really scares the hell out of me, is that, to have some kind of an attachment and definitely have it demonic and have it affect our relationship, like we've heard, it affects, a lot of people, health-wise and relationship-wise, right, Lane?
It's serious. Yeah, it is. That couple, we heard there was a couple, and he shot her, and
those the what is it, the Pantaleos or the Cantaleos or something like that? Is that they were they were a husband and wife team, and they split up and stuff, it
was after Bob Mackey's house.
It was after Bob Mackey's, right?
Yeah.
Is that they did Bob Mackey's they were on Ghost Adventures from time to time, and he ended up shooting her, and then he killed himself.
Yeah.
He had a standoff with the police, and so if you don't, and I mean, when I heard that, I was like, I told Lainey, I go, wow.
We don't do demonics.
Yeah, yeah, we do not do demonics, and that does scare the hell out of me, because I don't think I'm not trained to handle it,
No,
to try to
really
get rid of
serious.
it.
And
have you guys done anything with a demonic house or anything?
No, absolutely not. We have not touched that at all. Nope.
Yeah.
Don't want any part of that.
That's right.
All right, let's see here. We do have another one here. Okay, so they want to know, do you go back to a location more than once, and if so, how often?
I think we've only gone back to
We've
gone back to Crown Point twice. Is that we generally like to keep moving on. Is that and to experience more paranormal activity in different locations. And that's kind of our goal, right? We've gone, across the country. We just did the Leffingwell Inn in Connecticut this past October, and so we drove out there specifically to go do this inn, and the inn is the second oldest existing structure that's in Connecticut, right? And so it was built in 1695, and they physically moved the building to keep it a historical landmark because they were putting a street in where it really sat. So they moved it like literally a half a block away. But we went there, and we always like to experience different things. I mean, I went for work actually, and we stayed at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And so we brought minimal equipment. We always do this, right? Talk about a geek fest, is that we don't go to on vacation. We go on vacation and then we go investigate while we're on vacation, even if we're going to do something else. And so we always bring stuff with us, right? And so we were taking pictures at the Biltmore, and we caught what we think is a figure of a nurse in the glass windows. No reflection from a flash or anything. It was, it looked like a nurse or someone dressed in white on the opposite side of the glass windows.
Well,
and we were so far away from it.
Or it looks like a doctor with a long lab coat.
Yeah.
And that's the place where the Black Dahlia was last seen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So, and we did something that we were very respectful when we did it. Mm-hmm. But we went to Vegas a couple of years ago, and it was literally, I don't know, what was it, maybe 8 months or 7 months after the Route 91 slayings, and we went and found, they have it all cordoned off still. Uh-huh. We went and found the Route 91 festival area, and they've never reopened it or anything, and so it's out in front of Mandalay Bay, which makes sense, right? Because that's where the shooter was. But they have it all fenced off. And we went around there, and we actually had brought a millimeter with us and a recorder and a video camera. And as we were walking around it, paying our respects to it, we actually heard a howl. Now, you don't hear howls in Las Vegas. You might hear drunk guys howling in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's true.
But you really don't. From where this place was, it's on the Strip, but it's on its own side, basically. It's on the opposite side of the Strip, and so as we were walking around, there's traffic and stuff and cars, and but we definitely heard a howl. We captured it on video, and we definitely heard a howl coming from inside the Route 91 area, like a human howl, not a dog howl, not a wolf howl. A human howl. So
along with a big no.
Yeah, right.
Like no.
No, yeah. So that was creepy.
Well, at the same time, after that, we reviewed those photos, and we had black mist over the
over the top of the
grounds.
Yeah.
That
wasn't there.
That wasn't there, right?
There was no clouds. It wasn't, it wasn't cloudy, and there certainly were no black clouds. It wasn't raining or anything. And there was a cloud. When we looked at the pictures, there was a black mist over the top of the area, of the Route 91 area.
And we normally take a series of 3+ pictures when we're taking a picture or something.
Yeah, so anybody who's out there, and I'm sure you guys do it too, is that when you take pictures, whether they're full spectrum or regular pictures, we always take a series of 3. We stop in the location that we're at. So that if you capture something, right, if it's on all 3, generally it's not anything paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Yeah,
so,
we do the same thing. We take multiple pictures. All right, let's see here. Moving on here. Next question is, what has been your favorite EVP? I know you say you don't use a lot of that, but whatever one you have, what's your favorite?
Well, I would say, I still consider Spirit Box interaction EVPs, and really, we were at this place called Loveland Castle. If you guys ever get a chance to book it and go there, it's in Ohio. Do it, okay? There's a long history behind this Loveland Castle. It was kind of an eccentric guy who was really smart, and he was a medic in World War I, and he built this castle by hand, and it's a castle. It's a replica of a 10th century castle, and he rock by rock, he put this thing together and built this enormous castle. And he used to he was a teacher and a principal at the local school, and so he made this. It's kind of an interesting little story, but he made the group of kids that he taught throughout all the years and stuff. He made them honorary. He called it the Knights of the Golden Circle.
Oh, wow.
And so in order, your payment to get into being the Knights of the Golden Circle was that you had to bring up river rocks. There's a river right in front, more of a creek really now, but that you would have to bring up these river rocks to him, and that's what he built the castle with. Is that so? The story goes that that he even put, if anybody's into castles, they actually in 10th century England, they used to have a place in a castle called the Princess Room. And so what that princess room was basically, it was a closed off room that was in the top part of the castle. And what they would do is they would go and they would kidnap other princesses from other castles, and they would put them in the princess room to hide them, and demand ransom or land, or if they were at war with an adjacent landowner. Mm-hmm. So that's what a princess. Well, it's a princess tower, and that's what the princess tower is they would keep them in there, until they got what they wanted out of it, right? So they would go and they'd raid the castle and they'd steal the princess and they'd bring her in there. So he even built, because he wanted to be so exact with this castle, he even built a princess tower. So wow. Normal tours, when they give these tours of Loveland Castle, nobody is allowed in the princess tower. Like, they have big signs there. They have a ladder that goes up there, but they have big signs that say, sorry, don't climb on the ladder. But because we were doing the private investigation, the guy said, listen, I'm going to unlock the Princess Tower and you guys can go up there. And we were like, okay, cool. We'll go up there. So we had a game camera actually running in the dining room. We walked past the game camera, which set the game camera off because we had to go past the dining room to get to the Princess Tower. So you hear us way in the background going up on the Princess Tower. And when I reviewed the static cam, I heard an EVP. So I re-reviewed it a couple times. I grabbed the audio from it and I put it in Audacity, and I actually slowed it down and to listen to it. It was a little boy, and the little boy said, which made sense about that he only let little boys become, I know it's sexist right nowadays, but he only let little boys become Knights of the Golden Circle. And so there was a little boy's voice that came on this game camera, and it said, you're going to get in some trouble.
Oh, wow. And
even to this day, when I say that, it still gives me goosebumps. Is that because we weren't supposed to be up in the tower. And he obviously knew that. So he was warning us not to go in the tower. So that's my favorite EVP. Lainey, you got one?
And also, at the same time the boy was saying that, there's an orb in the video you can see flying up. My favorite EVP is probably, I would say the same one.
The same one?
Yeah, I really like Fowler. I know it's not really an EVP.
What, that mom?
With the mom.
With the mom? Yeah. Yeah. We do really well, I think, with little boys. I don't know why. We're little kids.
Let's see here. I'm flipping the page here because we have quite a few questions here, so I hope you're ready.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. Just throw them out there.
All right. If you come across a full-body apparition, who would you want it to be, and what would you say?
You want to take that, Lance?
Well, sure, I'll take that. Actually, recently I came across something, and it was the Hat Man. And I guess now that I think about it, that probably would be the best that I would want, is the Hat Man to come and see, what I'm doing. So the story behind the Hat Man is he's kind of like the angel of death. So he checks in on you to see if you're ready to be taken to the underworld, pretty much if you're ready to die. making sure
Yeah.
everything, should you live or die? So there was one night I was sitting here in our living room watching TV. I was doing some homework. I was taking some classes at the college. I looked up and I saw the Hat Man, a guy, tall guy in a trench coat. What a hat. It was a black, dark figure. And I looked at him and I'm like, really? Like, honestly, I have so much to do right now, really. And all of a sudden, it just vanished. So going back to your question, I'm kind of glad that happened because I know probably I'm not ready to go again. I'm not ready to run. He's not going to take me to the death plane again. So I guess that's where I'm going with. But I think I'm pretty lucky that did happen. First off, was I scared at the time? No, I wasn't. I was more like, really? And I had nothing recording.
So that's what you would say to a full body apparition. Really?
Yeah, really, honestly, I have a lot of stuff going on here. You have
right
to
now?
now?
Can you come back in 20 minutes? Is that I don't know if I think one of my first questions would be, I wouldn't ask that tried and true question all the time, are you dead? I think they already kind of get the fact that they're dead most of the time. I really kind of believe that.
I don't think so.
Some of them, some of them, I think they're, especially when you get intelligent EVPs and stuff, you really, I think they're well aware of that, that they're there. You know what I'm saying? They're scared to go to the next dimension or the next plane, and they're just there. But I would ask, it'd be an open question, but I would ask, what's it like?
Yeah.
What's it like? What's, what do you see? What do you believe now? I'd love to hear what that response was.
That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Excuse me. All right, let's see here. Next one. Oh, crap, Kim. I think she wrote down three pages worth of questions.
Well, you know what, Allison? Just keep riling them off, man. We'll answer one at a time. And I'll go.
You're just going to
there
keep
you go.
answering. We're going to try to do this here. What are your views on astral projection?
Well, on astral projection is that that out of body experience. Lainey, did you feel that you had during leukemia and stuff? Did you feel that you had an out of body experience
during leukemia?
Yeah, I mean, because Lainey had a grand mal seizure. That's how we got her to the hospital. That we didn't know what was going on, and she actually made dinner and we were cleaning up, and she ended up having a grand mal seizure in the kitchen, and so during that time, do you remember seeing yourself at all?
I didn't really see myself, but what you felt, very calm. Everything was so calm. It was so peaceful, and it was very dark. I know that there's a lot of stories out there about, astral projection. And I think I just read something recently that some doctors, had, and this is a recent, really within the past 3 years or so, hospice doctors got agreements from patients. I know this has happened before, but they weighed the bed. They had the bed. They got permission from the patient, and when they were terminal, they had the bed on a scale, and they actually weighed the bed. And when the person passed, they took, they took the scale, the weight of the bed, and measured it, and it was 8 ounces. It was consistently 8-ounce difference, and I believe I have that number right. It was 8 ounces that changed on every patient that they measured. Mm-hmm. And so if that's the case, right? I guess they corroborated that the soul or the spirit weighs 8 ounces. So from an astral projection, what I'm really saying is that kind of corroborates, that out of body experience, although that, at least, from an experimental standpoint, right? So yeah, I think that if you can tap your mind, and be able to manifest, that your spirit,
to be able to control it like that. I mean, I'm envious of anybody who could do that, but, wouldn't it be great that you could go see the lottery numbers and then come back and write them down real fast, right?
And be conscious to be able to write them down.
Yeah, right. Yeah, be conscious enough to write them down. Yeah. Yeah, so, even though that forms of time travel, it's not really, astral projection is what's current usually, and what you see. You see yourself, you see surroundings, you go to different places, you experience different things, and then you can come back and talk about it even when you've never left your house. So, that would definitely be pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Is that yeah, so I,
and the CIA has done studies like that too back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we both kind of believe in that.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. I think we have about 12 more to go.
Okay. All right.
They have a lot tonight. They really do. Yeah. So,
good.
Our chats are always great. They always have a lot of questions. So I try to get to as many of them as possible. Let's see here. Next one is, have you been investigating in other countries? If so, what country is haunted the most?
Well, I can answer. We haven't been. Is that I did get an opportunity through work. I went to England in 2016, and of course, right, I was by myself, so I didn't have my psychic buddy with me. Is that so? I actually did bring a camera, and I brought a Melmeter with me to go to go to the UK. But they, my understanding, Scotland, Ireland, England, the whole United Kingdom is massively, massively haunted. Massively haunted. People take it for granted. It's so funny because in the United States, there's so many of us that are jaded in the United States that are like, that's not real. That's crazy. You guys are crazy. Is that in the UK, it's totally accepted. Like, it is absolutely unequivocally accepted. Nobody questions the paranormal in the UK. Why? Because everyone has a story. Everyone has an experience. So you talk about, I would love to go back there and spend like 2 weeks just going and investigating castles, going and investigating the underground, the alleyways that still exist from the Jack the Ripper murders.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to go back and and we have at my work we opened. That's why I had to go in 2016. We opened up an office in London. So my colleagues that are in London, I talk to them every day, and they actually follow us now on YouTube. And share stories with me. Oh, I just moved into this apartment, and cabinets were open and throwing stuff at me.
Oh wow!
And they just take it for granted. They just go put the stuff back in the cabinets and finish watching the show.
Oh my gosh! Next one here. How do you feel about provoking?
Hate it. Don't do it.
I'm not for it. No.
Yeah, don't do it.
Exactly. Same.
Yeah. Not a cool thing, and I don't think you elicit any kind of response. If you want an attachment, go provoke. Go provoke. I really believe that. It's just like we treat it, and I'm sure you guys do too. If you went to someone's house, right? You certainly, unless you hated them. But if you didn't know them, you certainly wouldn't go into someone's house and be like, "Hey, shut up!
No,
sit down!" Right? A
No,
person would
exactly.
shoot you in the
No,
head.
I would not.
Is that? They would throw your ass right out of there. So and a lot of these spirits have attachments, to the home or to circumstances that happened in that environment. And then you come in there like a big bully. I don't know what anybody thinks that they would elicit from that outside of trouble.
Right.
Right?
I'm with you on that.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Next one. Exorcisms. Do you think they help or hurt a house or location?
I think, is that if they're done correctly, I think there's too many amateur people that are out there that, if indeed it's a dark entity or it's demonic, I really believe that you could do a lot more harm if you don't really know what you're doing with it, And I'm not talking about going to get a book that just has, some prayers, and think that you're an exorcist, I really believe. I mean, that, that's why the Catholic Church has a division, and I'm sure you guys know this.
Vatican.
Yeah, the Vatican does has
Yeah.
has an exorcism division, right? Is that so? And if they're willing to devote that much time to it, to the expertise of it, and they have all those, supposed hidden files that are in the Vatican archives, that they have access to, that they can reference throughout the centuries, and somebody else who just arbitrarily read 2 books on it or something, or, picked up some stuff from the library and is going to run around and try to exorcise a house, I think that would do a lot more damage. I don't think it would have, I think it would evoke, more problems than what you probably started out with.
I'm just going through the notes here real quick and making sure I'm not missing anything in chat. Let's see here. What has been the most haunted location you have been to?
What's your take on that?
I don't know.
I can tell you what I think.
What do you think?
What I think the most haunted location was.
Okay.
That's why we went back. Crown Point.
Crown Point.
I gotta say, is that for personal experiences, is that both times that we were at Crown Point, Lainey got her hair pulled for the first time.
And at the same time, the millimeter.
Yeah, the millimeter and the REM went off.
And then the REM went off.
And then I actually caught the backside of her hair when she was pointing at it. You could see it rise up like static electricity.
On camera.
On camera. So it's kind of cool. But the biggest experience and the most prolific that we ever had was at Crown Point, Juvenile Hall, which is on the 3rd floor. It's on the top floor. They still have the bunk beds up there. And so we were up there. We were finishing up the investigation. We were starting to take pictures of one another. And every time I went to go take a picture of Lainey, I kept getting a white streak coming. I could see it, physically see it in the camera lens. And so, of course, that prompted me to keep taking pictures as much as I possibly, as fast as I could,
right,
to take pictures to try to catch this streak that kept coming between the camera and Lainey. So I actually caught it, and I caught 2 pictures that actually had streaks in them, and I was like all excited that I caught it. So all of a sudden, we hear, now we were the only 2 investigating. It was a private investigation. Mm-hmm. We hear coming up the metal stairs, we hear footsteps quickly coming up the metal stairs. We stop, we turn towards where the staircase is. Obviously nothing's there. Then we hear a growl. The spirit box we still had running. The spirit box goes off, and it says, "What?" And then we hear a giant bang on the opposite side of Juvenile Hall. All happened within literally a matter of a minute. This whole sequence of events, and I got to tell you, is that I've never had that happen. We've had small spatterings of things, and then it kind of dies down. But to have that kind of prolific evidence that happens all at once was like we didn't even know where to turn. You're so like your senses are so heightened, and you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and you're trying to get a take on what's happening. Fortunately, we had it on video, and one thing I will say that if anybody wants to check out that high activity video at Crown Point, put headphones on, because you'll hear this. It's hard to hear when you're just listening with speakers, but you'll hear the footsteps coming up the stairs that started, and then you'll hear the rest of the sequence, and the slam against the back wall. So I think that was. Would you agree with that, Lance?
Now that you say that, I think I'm going to agree with you on that. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean that was the most prolific.
Well, after all that happened, we're like, okay, let's start taking more photos.
Yeah, right. Typical investigators, right?
Really
we're like, we'll just stay here and take more photos.
Backed into each other, and then we're like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
We wanted more.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, I answer a couple more questions here before we wrap things up.
Okay.
But what are your views on the Estes method?
I don't know if I have any.
Ah,
You know, that's a tough question for us. I don't know if I really. Well, I don't know if I really have any.
no.
To be honest with you. Sorry.
That's
God,
okay.
I thought I'd get all these questions right.
Hey, that's
You're failing.
okay. That's okay. Let's see here. What do you feel about the cemetery in Indiana that has 100 steps to hear about a vision of your death?
Oh wait, you broke up there. What was the last part of that?
Let's see here. I'll just say it here. What do you feel about the cemetery in Indiana that has 100 steps to hear about a vision of your death?
Is that I've heard about this before? Is that that's one of those things that's tough to that would be tough to prove. I think tough to corroborate. Right? Is that almost steeps in the annals of like the folklore kind of a thing? Where somebody may have had a premonition when they went up there, right? Had kind of a premonition of death, and then ultimately may have died literally within hours of that, and who knows if that was interrelated or not,
right?
But is that's sometimes people come up with some great folklore stuff too, but you never know, we would definitely have to go in there and spend some time,
Well, your mind's so powerful too,
right?
Of your mindset. So if you see yourself dying that way, I mean, for the rest of your life, are you going to think, and have yourself try to die that way? I mean, the mind is so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, when people were telling me that I'm going to die of cancer, I was like, no, I'm not.
Right.
Your mindset. So I almost think that if you do,
I defer to you. You're the authority on this.
You see yourself dying, and or you think you're going to die that way, it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, right.
I could see that. Let's see here. Okay, this is a running poll that we have through like every one that we do. What's the one object in the world you never want to be haunted?
My car.
That's what I said too.
Is that what you said too?
Yeah, I said that in an interview
That would
too.
suck.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, you get tickets. People would come and your car would do shit on its own. It'd be like that Stephen King Christine movie, right?
Oh yeah.
That thing would be after you all the time, And then when you need it to start, it won't start,
Yeah. Exactly.
That would be horrible.
It would
I guess being haunted. I guess I pretty much wouldn't want you to be haunted. I guess.
Oh, you wouldn't want me to be haunted?
Yeah, like possessed.
Me to be possessed? Yeah, that's good.
I mean,
right?
haunted, possessed. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
That would be weird. I'd be staring off in the corner, like just staring at the wall.
Right. I mean, you're so unpredictable sometimes.
All right, so I'm gonna kind of wrap things up here. We're a little bit over time, but it's all good. I'm going to go through here real quick and just give shout outs to everybody who was in chat tonight. We had Matt, we had Kim, we had Shay, we had Darren, we had Cora, Fred, Mama Deb, Rebecca, Christopher, Nico, myself. Anybody I'm missing? No, I don't think so. Kim was actually pretty good. She wrote them down for me tonight, so I don't have to scroll through all the messages since we had so many tonight. But I would like to thank everybody who was in chat tonight. Thank you for everybody who was listening, who was not in chat. We appreciate each and every one of you. Next week we have Central Utah Paranormal on, I believe. So check that out. It's going to be awesome. And we'd like to thank our guests tonight, Dawn and Lainey from Spectrewaves. So thank you very much for being on.
Thank you for having
Real
us.
quick,
This was a
give
great
shout out
time.
as to where people can find you at if they want to check out your data or.
Oh yeah, so First primary is our YouTube channel. It's Spectrewaves, because we like to say it twice. I don't know. It was some stupid thing with YouTube that we couldn't do just Spectrewaves. I don't know why, but
I think it was the first name. And the
yeah,
last name,
yeah, right.
and
The
then
first
I'm
name,
like,
last name, I don't know.
Spectrewaves,
You know,
there
yeah.
go.
So we did it twice. You know, so you can't miss us for that. Is that I mean, we're on Twitter. We're on like every social media site. You know, and we generally we're on Facebook. You can find us at Spectrewaves LLP. Feel free to write comments to us. We're also DEA Spectre on Facebook as well. So and that's generally where a lot of people messenger us at. And we have a website, Lainey.
Yeah, we do. It is spectrewaves.weebly.com. That's WEEBLY.com. And we spell Spectre SPECTREWAVES. So we had to be different. So instead of ER, we're RE. So
See?
Gotcha.
Just to point that out.
It's like some French thing. I don't know.
I've got one more shout out in chat. Lewis was in chat for a little brief tonight, so I better get him in there. But yes, so we will post this information on our social media as well, so that way you can get in touch with Spectrewaves. Also, so you can check out their awesome data or evidence. So please give them a look-see there and follow them on Twitter. And like I said, next week I believe is Central Utah Paranormal. I'm just going off of my memory here, so I can't keep track. We have to write everything down on the calendar. Kim has to write it down for me. Yes, I was right. Woo! Okay. So everybody have a good night and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh shit. Wrong one.
Thank you for listening to REP Paranormal and Friends. Be sure to check out Kim and Allison on Facebook at REP Paranormal Busters.